So if you're wondering if this is a real background, you'll see real puppy dogs coming back and forth and maybe barking every now and then. So yeah, it's real. And what happened yesterday in our empathic lawyer webinar was also incredibly real. And I've done webinars before for lawyers about what it means to be a good lawyer and a good human being, or how to get the magic back in your practice, or how to know if you hit the expiration date. But I chose this topic not knowing what it would be, and I had a response that was phenomenal, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And yesterday, I chose not to record that webinar because I didn't want people to be self-conscious. And it was a great move because there was such intimacy and vulnerability and sharing of really, deeply personal things. The death of a child, or, turning to alcohol because you didn't like yourself or what you were doing, or how to set boundaries so you're not a doormat with your heart. All these topics came up, and they came up in a very open setting. So the good news, we had the open setting. The not so good news, I don't have a recording of it. And I did feel that what happened was so significant that I wanted to summarize some of the points here. And that's what I'm going to do. So first of all, the fact that we could come together in this way and create a field of trust and intimacy and vulnerability, transparency, and true sharing and true fellowship is just proof that, it takes no time for reality to drop in. And that's the beauty of having a big heart, is reality can just drop in at any time. And yeah, you're not always going to be met by it. Sometimes you have to have your shields up or your boundary setters, and that's understandable. That's fine. But the fact is that when we're receptive to ourselves, when we're open to our own heart and our own empathy and our own vulnerability, that opens the door for others to meet, and you can very, very deeply and quickly fall into a beautiful state. And I know that's what happened yesterday. So, rather than just say, oh my gosh, you don't know what you missed, the main point is that to be open, that love can break out at any moment, that reality can break out at any moment, the true relationship could break out at any moment. And that is one of the joys of being an empath and allowing yourself to feel as we feel. Another takeaway, another point that came out more on the lines of topics, was that when we step into someone's life, we step into their field, we step into their energy, we step into everything about them, especially if we're empath. And so naturally, we're going to take that on. So what do we do with that? And, people had different strategies or solutions or life experiences. And one was to get out. There was one gentleman was a divorce lawyer, and he said, I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm tired of stepping into the mess that people's lives had become and the way they felt their lives had become a mess. I didn't want to do it anymore. And, I used to practice law. I practiced law in a penitentiary town. I had to stop going into the pen. I was just too sensitive. So there's some points where your protection means extraction. But there's also a really great point that was made, which is that you set boundaries. The fact that you're empathic doesn't mean that you just let everything in. It's so incredibly important to set boundaries in terms of your own internal psychic boundaries, but also boundaries with people in terms of where they can come and where they can't come. So the idea of, yes, we are going to be empathic, but we're not going to be doormats. And maybe this is a third point. I don't know if it's a second point. It doesn't matter. The point is, the fact that you can let people into your hearts doesn't mean that they can step all over you. It's still in terms of you asserting and stepping into your own autonomy and your own authority as a human being. And that's beautiful because that's true strength. That's true openness. When you can be open to people at the same time, keep your sense of self about you. And then you're also bringing more of yourself into the relationship as it happens. And the last point I'm going to make here, and doggies have been quiet, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep that up, is that there's a difference between empathy and compassion. And empathy means that you go into the space with that person. And of course, that's great. But there's also a way that when you step into that space, if they're in a space, they don't feel safe in the space that they're in. And if they don't feel safe, and if they don't feel secure, they are looking for you to hold a safe, secure space for them. And this is where compassion comes in. Empathy means you go in there and you feel for them, and it seems like the right thing to do, and sometimes it is the right thing to do, but sometimes not. Doesn't mean you close your heart. It means you can still have compassion, but you're holding your own individuality. You're holding your own space. You're holding your own power. So the difference between empathy and compassion, I'm not saying one's better than the other, it's just really a question of appropriateness, is it's possible to be empathic, to feel what other people feel, and that's great. But in terms of following them into that space and maybe sharing that space with them, everyone may be best served if you don't go in psychically, if you don't go in full with heart, but you go in with your compassion. So you can still feel for them, so you can still relate to them, you can still offer them your love and your, whatever else is appropriate. But you are still holding, if I may say, the higher ground and maybe the more secure ground. And you holding that ground enables them to feel safe in the vulnerable space that they're in. So a number of the people from yesterday want to continue in some way. There's obviously a lot more of us empathic lawyers out here. Some of us self-identify, some of us may still be in the shadows. But whatever it is, if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me. It's dave@davegold.com. Let me know if you're interested. I don't know what's going to form, but whatever it is, I know that when we come together in this kind of heart and this kind of clarity and love and just openness, that beautiful things happen. And that's something beautiful for our lives, our families, and also for our clients.